Stand by. All the sports you're talking about next here on Sports Bar. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Bar with the usual gang of sports fanatics, Ashton Schlachter, Chris Warner, and Travis Stanley. Welcome, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Another show, another opportunity for us to discuss a wide variety of topics. I guess we'll get started with some soccer, because why not? You know, men's national team plays tonight, 9:30.
Yes.
That's the start time. This Gold Cup thing. What are your thoughts thus far?
I think we've been very just unimpressive all around. Me personally,
don't hide your feelings at all.
Really, I we were improved against Haiti, but still had major finishing issues. The Honduras game, we were lucky to win that game, I think, in many ways, because they caught us on the counterattack. Luckily, we did put away, a few of our chances, and the defense held. But I hope, much like the women did in the Women's World Cup, I hope this men's team peaks at the right time and is on that track to getting better and maybe looking, forward to the final. Because otherwise, I think we're on a crash course to possibly play in Mexico for that playoff game to get into the Confederations Cup, which is something Jurgen Klinsmann has talked about a lot. That we don't want that. The Gold Cup has been a huge priority for this team for the last year, 2 years, really ever since the last Gold Cup was over. The mission was, hey, we got to get this and go ahead and qualify.
It just seems like there's way too much Clint Dempsey here, because he's scored 4 of the 7 goals they've scored in the last 3 games. Yep. He is the only offensive weapon at all, period. If you take him out, if he goes down with an injury, this team is done. I mean, because they don't have anybody that's proven, at least in the last 3-4 games or so, that they've got anybody, like you said, that can finish, that can consistently put offensive pressure on the other team.
Yeah. I mean, overall, it's men's soccer, at least here in the U.S., is unimpressive. People don't tune into it as much, and at the same time, I think that the players are we're okay. We get through it. The women's team is phenomenal, and I think the men's team is, decent. They can get through it. They can play a good game, but I think that with just Clint Dempsey is the only person on the team that is going to show us anything that we're not expecting. I think everyone else is going to kind of hang out and do what they need to do, but nothing phenomenal is going to happen.
I mean, I'll stop you right there. I mean, I think we do and should hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than what we have in the past. I mean,
it's
have
not
guys.
America's pastime, though.
Yeah,
it's somebody else's game. So it's okay for us to be bad.
What an American point of view.
For a large portion, spending way too much money on it to be as inconsistent.
Exactly.
Yes,
inconsistent.
And guys like Josie Altidore, who are a proven player, who's played exceptionally well for this for this men's team, for the national team, who, when he was struggling with Alkmaar in the Netherlands, couldn't do anything with them, and with Sunderland in England, was consistently scoring for this men's national team. So there is other people on this team that are really letting me down, you down, and the rest of the nation when it comes to watching this Gold Cup.
Is it a struggle because it's not the World Cup?
Probably for Americans, yeah. I mean,
that's where I think
the struggle to tune in.
Gold Cup, Green Cup, who cares?
And I think soccer's on the mind because the World Cup just happening for the women's. The women's national team, and so there's hype when it comes to that, but the stakes aren't as high, and so it's hard to get as pumped up. I mean, you're coming off of the biggest soccer championship in the world for the women's, and then we're looking at the Gold Cup, which on a grand scale, I mean, is it important? Sure, if you're part of that team, but on the grand scale of soccer, American soccer, it's not as big as the World Cup, at least. I mean, it matters to some extent, but the stage is not as large, and so I don't think it attracts as big of an audience.
I would say, though, that almost, at least in America, because of the women's national team winning, I think that there's actually more interest in soccer overall, because, I mean, I would say that for an average American, 2 months out of every 4 years, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm a fan of soccer. I'm going to watch this and care about it. But So right now we're still on that high of like, oh, soccer's great. Let's all go to the bar and watch it and discuss it and act like we know what we're talking about. So I think that it came at a good time for that because people still kind of care about what's going on. People who aren't like, diehard soccer fans.
Yeah. Well, whether it's important to the public, it's certainly very important to the future and the health of the national soccer team in the States because, you can't lose to teams in the Caribbean anymore. No, you can't. I mean, if you're going to be taken seriously, really when other nations look at us and, for our qualifying for the World Cup, it's like, well, you get past Mexico. I mean, you can both qualify. You're in now. Costa Rica had an impressive run in the World Cup this past go around, and they're a quality team. But winning the Gold Cup, you need to at least be the best in North America because the competition is not there.
You need the Associated Press to put out a poll. Because I think one of the issues is that soccer is too hard to understand from the casual fans following of the sport. It's all right, this is the Gold Cup, you got CONCACAF, you got World Cup, you got
There's
this, you got that.
Yeah.
There are players that play for teams overseas and then they play here. There's the MLS, the NS. What does all of that mean? Just tell me who is the best team in the world. Give me a top 25, put the American flag next to like number 4 or 5, 12, whatever they happen to be, and give you something to root for. Give you something to say, oh man, these guys are terrible. Look at the poll. That's all football.
No, I can attest to that because I'm definitely the casual soccer viewer. I like to watch games, but at the same time, I mean, I get bored halfway through because I'm not good at seeing all the little nuances that someone who really knows the game sees. So I need someone to tell me, this is when you stand up and cheer. This is what you care about.
And there's
This is how to effectively flop.
There's not enough goals scored either, and that's a big thing too. Is people want to see goals scored. It's why sports like the NBA take off. It's why the NFL changes rules to favor offense, so that we see more scoring because that's what people want to look for. And when you have games that are, I spent 90 plus minutes watching this game, and I saw one goal in the first couple minutes.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's what made the U.S. Women's World Cup game so amazing was that they scored all those goals really quick, and you're like, and that was just unreal for soccer, to see that. And so now you have the men's team that kind of has to play to that level to even generate that type of interest, and I just don't think it's that likely.
Yeah.
All right, from one sport on grass to another, let's talk Wimbledon here. Serena finishes off Wimbledon. She's got the opportunity with the U.S. Open next month to get the first Grand Slam since Steffi Graf back in '88. You could make the case. You throw in the opportunity for the female coach of the Spurs in the Summer League. This could be the greatest sports week for women's sports, period, with Serena dominating. You have the Women's World Cup team wrapping up their championship last week. But Serena was just, it didn't seem like there was much of a match.
There was
for her.
no competition. She was on fire. She did what she has been able to do in the past, and I could bet that we'd see a Grand Slam. I really hope so because there hasn't been one in my lifetime, but I think that if she plays the way she's been playing, we will get to see one.
When were you born?
94.
Oh my God. Because there's never been one in my lifetime. I was like 11 or something. I remember when it happened. Yeah, I've got to get something going here. So did Federer lose or did Djokovic win?
Djokovic won.
Yeah, I feel for Federer though, because I will say this is that
You might be the first person that's ever said that.
I know.
Yeah.
But Federer in the semis had to play Andy Murray, and who does Djokovic have to play? I have this written somewhere here. Gasquet, the 21 ranked person in the semis. I mean, good for Gasquet for making it there, but did he have a chance to kind of almost take a game off? Andy Murray's one of the top players in the whole sport of tennis. So you have that matchup, and then you get done with that, and that was a big win. And then you have to go into the finals and play Djokovic, who is one of the top players. I'm not trying to take away from Djokovic because he is. But I think when you're talking about these guys are playing every couple days, every day, every 2 days, whatever it is, it's hard to rally after a big match and turn right around and expect that same performance out of yourself.
That's definitely true. Tennis is a lot about rest, I think, because it is such an individual sport. Even in pairs, you're still covering a pretty massive amount of ground, individually. So I can definitely see that took a toll on him, and you could kind of see it in the way that he played. He was sluggish at times. He was struggling a little bit. So
having a guy like Federer, who obviously he's terrific. He's won so many major titles. But having him, who's 33, which, to us, 33 isn't very old.
Throw him
but to
away.
tennis,
Seniors tour next year.
yeah, but for a tennis player, 33 is pretty old, and maybe a 33-year-old shouldn't be making, those final match days as much as he does. So what does that say about, the health of tennis?
Yeah.
All of those people you just talked about, you could also say played soccer, and I would not know the difference. So maybe that's more to your point.
Yeah, exactly. There's less of those heavy hitter kind of names, household names, in tennis, and
We touched a little bit on that last week about the fact that we're not seeing the young kids come up and take it.
You do in golf.
Yeah, you see,
we
we're
were talking
seeing it in
about
golf a little bit,
but with
not
tennis,
in
you don't really necessarily see that. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, especially in the next couple of years once these guys kind of, retire,
Exactly. Who steps up?
or at least fall down a little bit in the rankings.
All right, from one sport on grass to another. All-Star game, Major League Baseball All-Star game on television tomorrow. The Home Run Derby gets underway in less than an hour. Changes to the Home Run Derby, maybe making this a little bit more relevant instead of just this a large group of players is hitting home run after home run and there seeming to be no real method to it. Now you've got an 8-team tournament, if you will. Some changes in that there's now a time limit on how long somebody can be at the plate. There are a set number of outs per person. Does this, and you've also got the top leading vote getter, one of the greatest home run hitters of all time, also in the event. Does this make the Home Run Derby more relevant and more watchable to today's sports fan?
I think the time element definitely helps because, I love watching people crush home runs as much as the next person. It's a lot of fun. But, there are guys that just get up there and it's just like, tink, there it goes, tink, there it goes. And it's just, they'll stay at the plate forever, it seems like. And so I like that element. I think speeding up baseball in general is a great thing that they're working on doing to attract people of this generation of sports fans, because it's one of those games that has just become, in my opinion at least, it takes too long sometimes.
It makes
especially
it more
Red Sox
watchable.
Yankees games, it takes way too long. So I like that they're doing this in the All-Star game in the home run
Derby.
the home run derby. Yeah, thank you. To kind of speed it up.
Yeah, that's kind of an issue in baseball overall is I think that, going to a game, it's such an event within itself, so you can sit for, how many hours and watch the game. But watching it on TV, it becomes, oh, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that. We're still in the same inning. We're still, 1 out
You
in
need to
or
find a
whatnot.
new team to cheer for.
Yeah,
That's kind
well.
of what this is all about. The All-Star game in general, though, you've got the game in Cincinnati, so the National League has home field advantage for this game, playing for home field advantage in the World Series. You start looking at who best benefits from this. Certainly Kansas City's on another great run. The National League seems to be, or at least going into this weekend, seemed to be St. Louis's league to lose, but then the Pirates pulled it within 2.5 games of St. Louis in the NL Central. So a lot to still be determined, but do you like the importance of this game deciding something so critical as World Series home field advantage?
No.
Not at all. I know. Well,
You've got an opinion on that.
Maybe the NBA All-Star game becomes more
puts
than
too
a
much
video
pressure.
game if you had something
Yeah,
meaningful.
I kind of like that. I kind of like watching the best players go out and just have a game of it. I kind of enjoy. It's kind of like the Pro Bowl for me. That I like to go out and watch people just play
Speaking
a good
of health
sport.
of sports, the Pro Bowl's doing real well.
I just think though when you put so much pressure on that game. Some players, when you look at certain teams, some players on teams that make it to the World Series, they don't have any stake in the All-Star game. And so their fate is essentially being decided for them by guys in their conference, which is, again, not their choice either. I just think that the top overall record should say a lot more about you as a team and your strength and deserving of being a home field or having that advantage than to have it decided by a bunch of a bunch of guys who got voted in.
Well, I don't necessarily like the rule itself, but I think when you just look at it in terms of does this make the All-Star game more watchable?
It definitely
To me, it makes the All-Star game
Oh, yeah.
more watchable because we mentioned the All-Star game in the NBA. You're right. It finishes 135 to 120.
Yeah.
No defense is played. 90% of the points scored are dunks.
Yeah.
It's just, to me that doesn't mean anything. I can't tell you when the last time I watched the Pro Bowl was because I just don't
that's
care.
true. It's pretty bad.
So.
I like it. I think there's a better way that you can go about making the game more watchable than to put so much pressure on
Yeah.
that. I mean, you're deciding your overall champion who get and home field advantage is not everything, but it is important.
It's
I mean, you
definitely
can't
important.
deny that it is important.
And I was just going to say, I agree with what you said, is that, also there is a lot of those guys who know that they're not going to be in the World Series. Maybe they're good enough to make that All-Star vote. But so, yeah, motivation is definitely a key factor that needs to be worked on and figured out, because a lot of those guys probably do not care enough to go that extra mile and make sure the American League or the National League wins that game.
Lots of motivated arms in this game tomorrow night. You look at a guy like Clayton Kershaw finally got in the game. It's nice to throw him a bone and bring him to the All-Star game. Scherzer's out. It looks like Chris Sale will probably be out, but still both sides with plenty of pitching that would make you think this has got the chance to be a fairly low-scoring game.
Yeah. Oh, Chris Sale, I think, is an interesting situation, only in that I think that at least from what I've seen, it sounds like he wants to play. He wants to be put in, but he's getting pressure from the White Sox saying, we need you here. We need you rested up for our game, I believe Friday against Kansas City, because they're working him to the bone, and they don't want him to use his arm. They want him to rest up for them. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes with what his team wants, or if he goes with what he is a player and what the American League wants. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he ends up deciding doing.
I understand it from an organizational perspective, though, because you have still how many games left to play in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's going to have a lot of starts left, and so do you let him go out there and
Well,
work
the White
a
Sox have to get out of the gate strong. I mean, they've got Kansas City right after the break, so
Absolutely.
it's not like you're in a situation where you want to ratchet down your competitiveness for a series that's meaningful just to let a guy play
it's the All-Star game, and I think a lot of organizations look at it from that perspective too. I mean, yes, home field, like we said, home field advantage is important, but it's only going to go. I mean, you don't know. There's no guarantee that that's going to be you anyway, regardless if he plays or not. And so don't take a chance at getting your guy hurt.
Yeah.
With how many pitchers are getting all sorts of elbow injuries and stuff, and all it takes is a few innings that could cause something like that to happen, and it's just not worth it in an All-Star game.
Going from one sport played on grass to one played on fake grass. Let's talk a little app football here. 3 Mountaineers on national watch list earlier today. Doug Middleton out of the defensive backfield was named to the Jim Thorpe Award watch list. That's for the nation's top DB. Jesse Chapman on the Remington watch list for the nation's top center. And Marcus Cox adding to his impressive trophy case with a Maxwell Award watch list invite, if you will, for the nation's top overall offensive player. These are 3 guys that have been kind of the concrete foundation, if you will, of this transition. And now Appalachian, I think, is starting to get the sense of what this move to the FBS is about in terms of national notoriety and ink in the newspaper and in the preseason magazines at a time of year where normally these kinds of things weren't talked about in the program's past.
Well, it's great. I mean, as a student, it's great to see our name somewhere other than, on our homepage. So
We're
it's
just talking
cool.
about the Michigan game. I mean,
Yeah.
that's I don't want App to be only known for that.
Yeah, well, especially now that we lost to Michigan, replaying them, it kind of feels like, all right, take it back. It's
Giving them a hard time for losing.
I'm not,
to
no,
Michigan.
I'm
They are
giving
1-1
everyone else.
against the best team all time, best program of all time.
That's true. No, I'm giving them a hard time for putting so much pressure, or not pressure, but so much, focus on something that, I mean, at this point is several years old, and, we need a new.
Were you in middle school in that game? You were, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
You were. I know you were.
Yeah, I was in like 6th grade.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. But
Looks like it.
it's also kind of interesting too. Again, going back to the national press aspect, and that was a big part of this. I mean, it being involved some on the inside of those conversations. It's about moving the needle from a national perspective and all of the good things that come with that: increased exposure on the campus, increased exposure on game day, the way that all works for this community here too. But you got a lot of people that really seem to think like this Appalachian team can be an upper crust the squad within the group of 5, and that's got some financial ramifications to it. That has a great deal of, again, national impact hanging in the balance there, because if you are that top team within the group of 5, you're playing a game on New Year's Eve, and that's really what it's all about going forward, is finding a way into those college football playoff access games and bringing along the national attention with that.
Yeah, I mean, this opportunity they have, to really kind of burst onto the scene for this coming year is really exciting. But it's like you said, it's just refreshing to open a magazine and have the 2-page spread instead of having to go to the back of that magazine for the top 10 FCS squads and getting a paragraph. Just the small things, help kind of, raise your program to that next level and help get your name out there to where, better athletes want to come to your school. So.
Certainly, Clemson's on the radar. Early thoughts about what that game looks like. If everything works out for Clemson, they've got a shot to be a contender within the ACC again. A lot of that's based on injuries, but what are your thoughts on that one going in?
Ooh. I mean, I'm excited to go, first of all. I'm super excited about that. But I think it's going to be a good game. I think that we can... I think we could give them a true game. I don't think we're going to, walk on the field and look like children playing giants or anything. I think that there is actually a possibility, if not winning, doing extremely well. So I think that Clemson needs to be careful to not do what Michigan did the first time around and kind of underestimate us, or, we could pull something over them.
It's the style of play that we have, though, too, that makes us not a huge underdog in games like that, and that's when you can control time of possession and minimize turnovers and run the rock. I mean, and it's not just being able to run the ball for 4 yards a carry. I mean, they down the stretch last year, App's rushing game, I mean, they were breaking off big carries over and over and over again, and so it's a dynamic. You're getting almost the same yards as passing on the run, which just doesn't happen. And so when you're controlling that time of possession and leaving Clemson's offense off the field, which Clemson is going to have a pretty high-powered offense this year. Their quarterback last year, his name's escaping me now. I think it's Watson. He burst on the scene and he looked great. And a lot of their struggles during the season were that he struggled with injury. And so he's somebody you have to keep off the field. And so we play to that strength. And I think if you show up and you run for 200 yards on them and have the overall majority of the minutes in the game, you'll beat them. They're not a dominant. It's not Alabama we're talking about. It's Clemson.
Yeah, we'll not run it up the middle every time.
I mean, I think whether we win or we lose, I think it's important not to lose by a lot.
Yeah.
Because, hypothetically speaking, if we lose that game by, a touchdown, 10 points, even 2 scores, and give them a good game for 3 quarters, and then you go undefeated the rest of that season, that looks a lot better in the eyes of those picking, those bigger bowls than if you just get beat down.
Yeah.
And that is the only team that at the end of the season people look and it's like, well, that was a quality opponent.
Yeah.
And look what they did to them.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like ECU a few years back when we played them as the opener. I went to that game. It was 110 and terrible.
Hottest game of all
It
time.
was awful. It was the band members passing out in the stands.
They were taking people in buses away from the stadium.
I remember.
With the air conditioning
were
on just to cool
cooking.
them off.
Yeah,
and
we were
take them to the
cooking.
hospital. It was crazy.
But I mean, that game said a lot. I mean, minus the heat, it said a lot about, I think, how the rest of that season went too, because we played well for the first, 10 minutes, and then
About to halftime,
maybe
honestly.
half.
Turnovers a problem.
Yeah, turnovers were an issue. But we kind of went downhill, and I think that said a lot to people, especially because we knew we were looking towards, going true Division I, and I think people were kind of looking at us and going, well, you had an opponent there and you kind of blew it. Can you handle this? So I think it's going to say a lot to, like you said, to play it and show, we can play with the big boys. We can be this team that people are talking about, especially when you've got, these guys with awards and stuff that they're being considered for. I think it's going to say a lot if we can, show people that we can play with these teams and do well with it.
And it's going to say a lot for Marcus Cox too,
Definitely.
because if you're on the Maxwell watch list, if the biggest opponent you play is Clemson and you go and you run up and down the field on them, that is going to play in your favor, because that's who they're going to go back and look at. Because I mean, if you look at his past stats, he garners in touchdowns like it's nothing. He's going to put up the gaudy numbers, but what people are going to look at is, what did he put up against Clemson? That's going to be his mark for the season. And so I think that he's going to have a lot of motivation going into that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look too at Doug Middleton with Clemson's offense. I think there's a shot for him to have kind of that breakout game, if you will. And Middleton's a guy that, because of his experience in playing both corner and safety, with a spread attack, and Clemson's attack will be a little different this year. With Chad Morris leaving to become the head coach at SMU, there will be some new wrinkles within that offense. It's, how quick do you adjust in week 2? But a lot of that's going to depend on Middleton. He's one of the glue players within that defense. Thing that I think I'm most excited about on the defensive side of the ball where he factors in is now you're back to that period where you've got a stud at every level. You've got Ronald Blair up front, you've got John Law in the middle. That doesn't mention anybody else that's emerged out of those three spots, but you're back to having an All-American caliber player at each one of those areas, and I think that just makes the entire the entire whole sum of the defense better.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. And I mean, if Law can keep the quarterback uncomfortable for the majority of the game, or I mean, Blair, I'm sorry, if he can keep the quarterback uncomfortable for most of the game, have him moving around the pocket and questioning himself, few turnovers could win this game. It really could.
Oh,
I mean, if App cannot turn the ball over and get 1 or 2 total turnovers, interception, fumble, whatever it may be, it's a wide open game.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of where we're going to see the game is on turnovers. I think that if we can hold the ball and keep it and, take advantage of situations where they may be fumbling or, not getting a great hold on it, I think that that's going to make this game. I think that, we're fairly, either even or closely matched up when it comes to everything else. I think that it's going to come down to, who can control the ball better.
Well, yeah, I mean, last year you saw more defensive success once we could actually get to the quarterback, and we started blitzing a lot more. That really helped a ton. So definitely I think that'll be a huge factor into the Clemson game to see if we stay competitive. I'd be surprised if we didn't blitz and stay competitive. I'd be surprised. Yeah.
Got about a minute left here. Reasonable expectations for the season. What's reasonable expectations?
Reasonable, I think.
I'm curious to hear how you go with this, 'cause you're always within reason.
Yeah, okay. But, I mean, I want to say, we're going to be undefeated. It's going to be great. I think it's going to be a really good season. I think we could go with 1 loss, maybe 2, the whole time, including the Clemson game and everything, because I think we just have that team right now. So I'm hoping that that's where we end up. But, I mean, I would not be shocked if we went undefeated this season. I would not. It wouldn't surprise me.
Probably 1 loss, if any, and it's all going to be dependent on the Clemson game, I think. Or maybe you drop one to Georgia Southern or something.
Yeah.
But that's blasphemous to say.
I would say 9-3.
Throw my drink at you.
I would say 9-3 just because I still think there's a possibility that we might be 1 year away, maybe next year, because most of that team is still going to be around.
Sophomores, juniors, and that kind of thing. So we'll see how that all transpires. That's last call for Sports Bar. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, you can reach us at www.watchapptv.com. Until next time, I'm David Jackson. Goodbye, everybody.